So basically, I guess my question is, how do I navigate this? Because it's quite disheartening, right? Because like I said, the government estimates that it's almost 200,000 kids right now that have a parent in prison in England and Wales. We don't know how many adults have had that experience and have this trauma walking around. So I'm like, how do I navigate that? And like I said, I feel like there's organising because you want to tackle injustice, but then there's organising from a place of this injustice is so deep and I can't live or exist without tackling it. So while I'm doing this work, right, the trauma continues, the injustice continues, and I have to hold that and balance that while also being the person that everyone wants to connect with instead of being in community with each other.
Well, it's really hard. I mean, it sucks. I mean, that's a fact. The question is, what do you do with that? And I guess the first, like, are you trying to do this alone? Who are your co-conspirators? Who are you doing it with?
Ideally, people with experience, other people that have this experience.
But I mean, how many? Like,
There's like 4 or 5 of us.
are you the only fully invested?
Yeah.
How come?
Because it's so traumatizing.
Right.
Yeah.
On the other hand, you know, I mean, just as a basic sort of premise, trying to do stuff alone where everything winds up coming to you because you're the most committed is a problem. Because you need support and you need to support each other. And the only way to get there is making a shared kind of commitment because you just can't do it alone. It doesn't work that way. That's the first thing I'd suggest. The second thing is, how are you working with the kids? In other words, what are you expecting from the kids?
In terms of, so there's like 2 parts. There's the kids part, which I'm not doing yet because that's a whole safeguarding thing, but I'm trying to connect with adults that have this experience. So anyone over 18.
Okay, but what about the kids themselves?
The kids themselves, there's charities around the UK that support the kids and they're very gatekeeping with the kids as well, I should say. So it's really hard to even connect with them, even if I wanted to.
What about a parent figure or an elder or an older brother or sister?
Again, the charities that support them are quite gatekeeping.
Well, see, that to me strikes me as a real problem because, in a sense, they're the ones that are really suffering from this. And my understanding, or what I've learned from organizing, is you have to start there. You know, you have to start there because that's where the need is greatest. That's where the hope is most important, and that's where, in a sense. Well, not in a sense. I think in a sense, that's where the power has to come from. And so when you're cut off from that, that's kind of a problem because then you're trying to organize people who care, but not the people who are the victims of the injustice themselves, right? So it's almost like trying to organize a support constituency rather than the constituency with the problem. So then the question becomes, why are those people interested at all? Why do they care? Why do they care? Not the kids, but the people that are your constituency, which is not the kids, it sounds like, but the people who care about this.
I think it's mainly because, like, when I share the experience, people are like, oh, that's a really bad injustice.
Yeah.
I want to do help in something.
And do they commit? Do they connect it to their own experiences of hurt and injustice? Or is their approach, oh, gee, those poor kids, let's help them out?
Yeah.
Now, that's a different kind of approach. You know, it's a different way of thinking about it because it's looking at the kids as less than, rather than the kids as where the future is. And it's so common, unfortunately, when people confuse doing with doing for. Now, support constituencies can be extremely important. When we were organizing farm workers, we had to organize a boycott of California grapes all over the US and Canada. And we had to get people who were not farm workers, but to support. We had to build organization in those places around people's values, around the relationships we were building and the whole thing, because they were not the people who most directly experienced the injustice, but they did eat grapes, so they could stop doing that. And they did buy in supermarkets, so they could. I guess what I'm trying to say is that organizing a support constituency can be really important, but it's also got to be real. It's got to be real for them. the commitments have to be real. And they shouldn't be leaving you alone. They should be supporting you. Now, it's easy for me to say that, but I think there is work there that can be done, relational work, values work, interdependence kind of work, where it isn't just like, oh, you're great. Isn't it wonderful you're doing that? No. How are we beginning to do it? How do we begin to own it? Now, I don't know if this is helpful or not, but it just seems to me there's possibility there that may help, because ultimately you got a power struggle, right? I mean, the government is not sympathetic to this right now, or so it seems. And so then when a government is not sympathetic, what do? Do you say, oh, gee, the government's not sympathetic? What do? You say, please, government, be sympathetic? What do? What do? Especially a government that's supposed to be responsive, a government that's supposed to be democratic, what do?
Organize.
Huh?
Organize.
Yeah, you sort of say, look, you said this, but you're doing that. Our community, and it's not just us, it's more people, like, when are you going to step up? In other words, democracy requires accountability. And it's not about giving gifts. It's about responding to needs in a way that you have to respond. And here in this country, the proximity of representation here is so different. I mean, I went back to the States a couple of years ago as a royalist because, here's why. No, because it makes clear the prime minister is not a king. See, we think our president's a king. That's a problem. It's a big problem. But what I mean is, in Canada, the leader of the Conservative Party lost because he lost his seat. How many voters is that? It's like in the US, if you're going to run for Congress, to even be taken seriously, you got to have $3 million. See, you have a much more proximate system, which means it has to be more responsive. And I guess that's kind of the way I would be thinking about it. I hope it's helpful. But good for you. I mean, you're fighting the good fight.